She put me in dance classes at 5 years old, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with it, and it was something that was kind of my escape from being the gay kid in a small farm town.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Duke's Download, the no filter podcast where we get the real stories, real tea, and real downloads from the people who are actually living it. I'm your host, Duke Mason, and today I am beyond excited because we've got a true superstar in the house. She's a classically trained ballerina, a Las Vegas showgirl, a farm kid from Texas who turned her two T's into international fame, one of the most talked about queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. You know her from those sky-high kicks, the precision dance, and that unbreakable spirit. Please give it up for the one, the only, the real Elliott queen, Elliott with two T's herself. Elliott, thank you for being
Hello.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so happy you're here. How are you doing? How are you feeling today?
I'm good. The weather in Vegas is still, it's not getting too hot quite yet, but we're all going to be just burning alive pretty soon.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was thinking about it when I obviously I knew you were from Vegas and that you lived there, but how does that work when you're having to dress? I mean, as I said before we taped, I was so grateful that you actually got all done up for the interview because it's like what? It's probably boiling there, right?
I mean, it's just something you kind of get used to. You get used to
Yeah.
the climate. It's, you wait to put your wig on until the last possible moment because it's just radiating
Yeah.
heat.
It's kudos because if I'm in like a polo shirt and I'd be drenched in sweat already. Um, but one of the reasons I wanted to interview you was that I think, beyond Drag Race, just your life story is so interesting and compelling. And you grew up on a farm in Texas. And I was curious, like what little Elliott was like on that farm and how did a country kid, when you were so young became how did a country kid become, I guess is the right way of putting it, a classically trained ballerina and drag superstar?
So as a little baby kid, I always was just twirling around the house, and my mom could see that I had a natural ability. And so she put me in dance classes at 5 years old, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with it, and it was something that was kind of my escape from being the gay kid in a small farm town. It was, where I was accepted and I could be a star. I could be, oh, look at Elliott, it was a special, beautiful place to be in such a difficult environment. And it really was just my safe space. And I just it was something that God gave to me. He gave me the ability to dance the way that I do. And it's always been so special to me. And it really was my mom who, she knew from day one that I was gay and she knew that I was fabulous. So she never once, tried to dim that. She always wanted to lift me up and make sure that I was supported and loved because she knew how difficult the world outside was for me. So it was the
Mhm.
combination of being a dancer and my mom that kind of created where I am today.
What was it like when you first started doing classes? I mean, did you feel like were you aware at that? Not to get to focus on like the negative, but I mean, I can imagine, I always say I grew up, I was lucky that I grew up in a relatively accepting environment and place, but did you feel in any way, I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but did you just say, I don't care what people think? Like, I'm just going to pursue this passion? Or how do you feel in the environment you were in?
My mom had a phrase that she would say to me every day before I got on the bus to school, and she would say, fly under the radar, like, airplanes, how they would fly low enough to go under the radar. And she would say that not to dim my light. She would say that
Mhm,
to protect, to be self-aware, to protect myself, not necessarily to
mhm,
diminish who I am, to just kind of be more self-aware and not welcome the unwanted attention that would come my way from, being the gay kid in my town. Because I mean,
mhm.
my town had a Walmart, a Chili's, one high school, so everyone knew everyone, and it just she could see that it was going to be difficult for me. And so she would say every day for the best of school, fly under the radar. But she knew that I didn't have to fly under the radar in the dance classes and, at my studio. So she knew that that was my safe space. But, out in the world, just fly under the radar.
What was that first experience like when you were 15, when you did your first, well, I don't know if it was your first drag competition or where you performed in drag, like publicly for the first time, but what was that? How did that come about? And what was that experience?
So in Dallas, there was a gay youth center that kind of coexist. Every major city has the resource center. And so it was a youth center that kind of was along the similar aesthetic. And I would go there for counseling and for, every Thursday they would have a big group dinner. So all the teens would come.
Mhm.
And so it was just this gay youth center. And they would put on these nonprofit events. And when I was 15, we had one of our first major nonprofit events. And I was 15 years old, and we decided, a whole bunch of us kids, I mean, we're all teenagers, we decided let's, choreograph some drag numbers and do drag. And, it was in
Wow.
the safe environment of, supervision and parents and,
Yep.
whatnot. But it was really the very first time that I did drag was at a ticketed charity event. So it wasn't like in my bedroom or anything. It was like on a stage with backup dancers and costumes. And so it was incredible to be thrown into it that way. I'm really lucky to have had that support to be able to do it so young. But that was the first time that I really, got a taste of it.
And what was that like? I mean, did the same way that you were drawn to dance and to ballet was drag with that moment? Were you like, this is something that I like? Did you just immediately feel like this is something that connects to me?
What I felt connected me to it was being a dancer, being in an ensemble of other dancers. Um, I wasn't necessarily in control of what performance we did, what numbers we did, what choreography we did. And so with drag, I was able to, you know, show off and show how, trained I was as a dancer, but I got
Mhm.
to express myself as a dancer my own way. I got to
Mhm.
decide how I wanted to look, what songs I wanted to do, what performances I wanted to do. So it gave me the artistic outlet to express myself that way while still being a trained dancer, doing, classic ballet classes and everything like that, that had more structure. But doing drag, I got to be, the producer and the director and the
Mhm.
creative director of everything that I was doing. So that gave me the freedom to do all of that.
No, I mean, I think that's I mean, from my perspective, I think that's one of the best parts of drag is that, it's such an incredible, way for people to express themselves, both personally, but also just artistically. And every drag queen is different. I mean, everybody
Right.
has their own persona, not just their own name, but their own look, their own style, their own everything, mannerism, whatever it may be. But just the artistry and the creativity is just incredible. And I mean, in your case, and we'll get into this later. I want to talk to you more about your personal style and voice. But before we move on to Drag Race, I wanted to ask you, as someone who went to a gay youth center when you were young and coming of age, especially given the climate we live in now and the times we're living in, how important do you think it is for LGBTQ youth to have a safe space like that? And how do you feel when you see, Ellie, I think you and you're a little younger than me, I think maybe, but but for our generation, I think, at least I'll speak for myself, but I came of age, there were definitely struggles, but it seemed like we were on like a forward trajectory, like things were inevitably, kind of heading in the right direction. But I feel like we're in a lot more of an uncertain time right now. And I guess I just
Yeah.
wanted to get your perspective on that.
I mean, I was really lucky with my youth program that I was a part of because I would not know where I would be today without it. I was introduced to the human rights campaign as a young teenager. And so that really helped me understand that I am a person, I'm a human being, and I have rights and I have things that I need to be taken care of. And so as a senior in high school, I carried around printouts of my legal rights as a student in the state of
Wow.
Texas. And I handed them out to my principal and to my
Wow.
counselor of the things that they're required to do for me as a student. And that gave me power. That gave me, you know, it gave me a safety net almost, knowing that I legally was meant to be taken care of. But I think currently, I think the difference between then and now, even though it's only been, a few years,
Yeah.
is we were doing this. It felt like we were getting better and better, and things were, we were what we were fighting for and marching for and having our parades and everything was for. I felt like it was finally starting to pay off. But now I feel like we're just fighting to keep the things that we already have, to beg not to take away the things that you gave
Right.
us when we should have had them in the first place.
Right.
It's just that's the hardest thing, is I feel like we're fighting to keep things that we have fought, decades and decades and decades for.
I thought it, no, it's so true. And I think, I wanted to highlight that because I think you are a perfect example of what someone can become and be when they have a, supportive environment around them and a safe space and a place where, they can have that encouragement and freedom to express themselves. And you just, when you stifle that and you make kids feel like they're living in a climate of fear or hostility, or I just think it's tragedy, and it stifles that potential within that person. Um, but of course, I have to ask you about Drag Race.
Yeah.
And I was curious. Obviously, it's been what, I think this is the 20th year or something that it's been on the air, so it has become like this
Yeah.
cultural institution, not just within our community, but sort of broadly in pop
Right.
culture. Um, so when you got the call that you were cast, or like when you even found out about I guess the place to start would be how you came to audition. But then when you found out you were cast, what was that whole experience like when it first came under your radar?
What was so crazy about it was I auditioned right as COVID was happening. And
Mm,
so I would get a response that, "Oh, we're going to pause production and we're
mm,
not going to go forward with picking people yet. So just wait." And so then you're just like, well, dang, of course, when I decide to, join this, of course the world shuts down.
yeah.
And, but it just, as a dancer, as a performer, you become obsessed with the idea of auditions and
Mhm.
gigs and what's the next thing? What is the next thing I can achieve? What's the next, opportunity that I can strive for? And so that's kind of where the passion to want to be a part of it came from, was, okay, I've accomplished this and this and this. What else can I do? And so that's really where the idea for Drag Race came from, was I wanted it to reach higher in whatever field I was in. As a dancer, you always want to work on cruise ships because it's consistent work. And so I
Mm,
did that for 2 years. And then
mm,
I, it's just, and then I moved to Las Vegas and I wanted to be a
mm,
Vegas, performer, and did
mm,
that. So I was like, what's next? What else can I achieve? So it's this just hunger that as a performer, as a dancer, we just naturally have, where we're always trying to reach for the next opportunity.
mm.
And Drag Race was kind of, it's kind of top tier as a queen, that you kind of want to achieve that. It's kind
It's
of like a
basically
badge of honor.
the Olympics for
Right.
drag queens, basically.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's as big as it gets.
Right.
But I mean, putting the COVID factor aside, which obviously, I mean, I remembered that that was a big element during that season.
Yes, it was hard.
Um, but was the experience where you expected it to be? Because I always feel when you meet people who, whether it's sports or whatever it may be, politics, movies, music, performing. You wonder if once they get there, if it really is the way that they experienced or imagined it to be. Was it what you expected it to be, or was it the whole experience?
I mean, for me, particularly because of my season, when we filmed, I'll never know if it was
Right.
what I expected it to be or not, because
Right.
the way we filmed it was so different than anyone else's season. And so I've
Right.
worked with Drag Race girls long before I was on the show. And so you kind of hear what their experiences are like, and they're all pretty similar. And so no one can ever compare what they go through to what we went through on our season. It was very strange, very bizarre. It was a lot more steps involved, a lot more
Hmm.
obstacles, and it just made it more difficult and more stressful. And so it was almost like a harder season to film because of, all of the barriers we had against us. It was really difficult. But I mean, it's never going to be what anyone expects,
Right.
especially with our season. No one, even the people who've done it for years and years and years behind the scenes, they even had no idea what to expect with it. So it was just,
No,
we were figuring it out as we went along.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I remember life in general, but I mean, yeah, but obviously during that period, but having to perform and it's just, you're right. It's hard. It's particularly on a show like Drag Race, when part of it is the energy and being able to interact with people. And I can only imagine in a way, your ability to be, creative and to get that your performance across in that sort of environment is even more impressive, I would say. But one of the things I loved the most about you was that you clearly had a love for pop culture, for not just pop culture today, but like, icons like Judy Garland and Rue McClanahan. You read into your performances and your persona. And where does that interest and passion come from? Was that a thing from when you were young that developed, or did that come later in your development?
So it all comes from my mom. My mom, like I said, my mom knew I was gay since I was very, very young. And so she instilled in me knowledge about things that would pertain to my life as a person in the entertainment industry. So she made sure that I watched old black and white Broadway musicals on VHS. She made sure I had a VHS tape of The Birdcage when I was like 10
Mhm.
years old. She wanted me to know references to things. She wanted me to know about music and about film. And I mean, I had Doogie Howser on VHS. I had Murphy Brown on
Oh.
VHS. I had things that she wanted me to know so that when I walked into a room with people who were directors or choreographers or
Mhm.
managers, that I could stand on my own and not just be like the young, stupid kid that was in the
Right.
room. She wanted me to kind of know what I was talking about when I walked into a room when it came to entertainment and the industry I wanted to pursue. So my mom 100% is the whole reason I know anything about anything, because she just made sure that I knew all the gay things.
It's important. I don't know if you're familiar with this reference, but when I was a kid, I remember, I don't think I'd even come out at this point, but my mom has a lot of gay friends, and but she would show me things like, do you know who Julie Newmar was? Right.
Absolutely.
The Catwoman and like the old Batman, like
Yes.
super campy, like super like, but
Yes.
like great. But like I look back, and my mom showed me John Waters movies when I was a
Yes. So
teenager.
did I.
So like, and I look back and I go, I don't know if she's, we'll go into that, but she always like, sometimes she'll be like, oh no, I didn't see it coming. And other times she'll be like, yeah, maybe deep down I did, like, but regardless, like she showed me all these movies and shows that later on I was like, oh, thanks, mom. Thanks for showing me that stuff, because not only
100%.
not only would I mean, especially for you, I can imagine as someone who incorporated these influences into your persona and your performances, having those touch points and that sort of that information to go to take from and use as inspiration must have been pretty helpful.
It was. I mean, there's something powerful about being the only person in the room that knows a reference or knows what someone else is talking about. It's a
Yeah.
very powerful feeling, and
Yeah.
it's been beneficial to me in many a situation to be able to carry on a conversation with someone knowing what they're talking about instead of just kind of like being in the back, just hanging out with the other, 20 something year olds.
Yeah.
I was very proud of the fact that my mom instilled that type of knowledge in me because she knew it would help me one day as an
Mhm.
entertainer. She knew it would be important. So thanks, mom.
No, I feel the same way. Well, out of your performances on Drag Race, which one on a personal level, like were you most excited about or proud of, or in terms of like, but it could be in any way, whether it's the song, or the whatever. What was the performance that spoke to you the most on a personal level?
Can I be completely honest? The whole
Mhm.
thing was like a fever dream. It's so hard to even think back to anything in particular that happened because it doesn't feel like it really happened because you're so stressed the entire time you're there. You're just you're just trying to make it through the motions and do what you got to do. I will say one thing that was really cool that I remember was when I was on set, we had to do a mini challenge the one day to a RuPaul song that was Happy Birthday. And on that actual day that we filmed that, it was my actual birthday.
Nice.
So in my head, I got to go home and say RuPaul sang Happy Birthday to me. And that was that was cool. But the whole thing, like you try your best with every single challenge. You work so hard, you don't sleep,
Yeah.
you're on set all day and you just try so hard. And so every single day I just try to do my best. And again, it's all like a blackout to me. It
No,
really
you.
was.
I can imagine because again, not to keep repeating myself, but like, people that are in, those sort, whether it's on the dive board, the Olympics, whatever, when you finally walk up to that threshold, when it's like, okay, we're doing this, you hear people say like, I blacked out, or
Yeah.
I don't even remember the details. You just do it, you just do it.
Literally blacked out for 6 weeks. Truly, genuinely. It's
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
I have little like tidbits of little flashes of memories of it, but
Yeah.
it was so stressful that it's just all gone.
But I mean, obviously Drag Race, as incredibly big and important as it is and was, it's just a part of your journey. I mean, it's been a few years since season 13. You were based in Vegas. You have been doing Viva Drag Brunch and traveling nonstop, hosting charity galas, big gay cruise charters. But I saw all the places you've been. I mean, you've been to Japan, you've been to London Fashion Week, New York. What does a typical month look like for you these days?
Well, this month in particular, I decided to take a break because between February and April, I was home 4 days. From the first week
Wow.
of February until the first week of April, I was home 4 days. And
Wow.
so I was very exhausted, which I love what I do so much. I love being exhausted. I love, you know, being a zombie at the airport. It's why I do what I do because that was the dream. But it was just kind of like you do kind of get burnout every once in a while and you have
Yeah.
to refocus yourself and recenter yourself. And so this month I am taking it very easy, but then next month I'm right back at it. I'm going what I try to do is I try to do at least 2 weekends out of town a month and then try to do 2 weekends at home. But it just depends, Sometimes I'll be gone every weekend for the whole month or I'll be gone the whole month. Like it just
No.
depends. And so every month is different and I manage myself. I do everything myself. So it just depends on what I'm able to get. And once I get it, it goes in the calendar and I pack my bags.
It's impressive. I mean, you know, uh, my mom, I don't know if you know, my mom is a musician. She's Belinda Carlisle
Oh.
from the Go-Go's. And,
Oh my God.
I just know, I mean, she always says, granted, she's 50, 40, 50 years older than you now, uh, but she always says, like, I mean, I've seen it, with my own eyes. It's a tough life sometimes being
Yeah,
on the road. I mean, people think it's glamorous. It's not always glamorous. It's hard on you,
it is
you know?
not glamorous.
Yeah.
It is not glamorous.
I mean, it's cool. You know, I think the one thing she always says it is cool getting to experience different places and experience seeing
100%.
new. I mean, that's the maybe the one benefit of it is that you get to go to new places, experience cool things, and travel. But it's not always the most like luxurious,
No,
opulent accommodations.
I mean, I have a brother-in-law who's never been on a plane. I have a brother-in-law who's never left the state of Texas. So
Yes.
the fact that I come from a town where that's the norm, and
Yeah.
I've now been to Japan, and I've been
Mhm.
back and forth to England multiple times and to Amsterdam, and just the things that I've done is things that
Mhm.
people from that I went to school with are just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing these
Mhm.
things." It's just it seems insane, but to me, it's just kind of my norm at this point in my life. So, but I pinch myself constantly because I just can't believe I've done the things that I've done and continue to do. I mean, I have things scheduled all the way up through the end of this year already, of
Mhm.
things, new things and places I haven't been, and just it's insane.
It is insane, but it's a testament to your, your will, sheer force of your force of nature, and you've willed all of this into existence, which is pretty amazing. But other than Drag Race and your performances and your touring, you've also popped up on TV. Yeah, you were on Hacks. I mean, what was the coolest pinch me moment, would you say, that you've had, like other than Drag Race, where you were like, this is pretty effing cool?
What I think is cool is in my head, only my family saw me on Drag Race. That's how I see it. Only my family saw it. No one else saw it. No one knows who I am. And that's just how I feel. But I one of my like buddies on Instagram that I text back and forth is Minnie Driver. Like
Mhm.
she's just one of my buddies that I just text back and forth to because she has
Yeah.
somewhat knows who I am because of Drag Race. And
Yeah.
I've been at parties before in LA where I would see um, celebrities and people of things that I've seen them on TV, and they would go, "Oh my God, you're Elliott. It's so nice to meet you." AOC.
Okay.
AOC
Wow.
jumped out of a moving car in Washington, D.C. to run down the sidewalk to come say hi to me. And in that moment, I just couldn't process what was happening because I was standing in front of the White House or the Capitol, and I was doing stuff with Human Rights Campaign, and I was in full drag, and this car kind of just skids in the middle of the street, and this woman gets out and goes, "Is that Elliot?" And I couldn't really see her. I couldn't really see her, and I'm like, "Oh, hi," like, "Hello, hello," and she got closer, and I went, "Oh my God, it's AOC." And I'm standing there with all of the Human Rights Campaign people, and she gives everyone a hug, and she gives us all like this big motivational speech. And it
Wow.
just moments like that where I'm reminded that people did see the
Mhm.
show and people do know who I am is just madness. It's when I'm in a different country. I was in Australia, and a woman from like Japan, I think, knew who I was. And I can't process that because again, I think only my family saw it.
No, it's true, especially because, not to keep going back to this, but it was during a time when the world, everything felt so isolated.
Right.
So, so I can only imagine when you then realize that, I mean, in a way, more people probably know you than most,
Yes.
most drag queens, because, everybody
We had a
wants,
captive audience.
you basically had, the whole world
Yeah.
watching the show. And so, I mean, and that is right there. I mean, I'm sure Human Rights Campaign loved that I mean, you served, I mean, I hope this is a weird way to say it. You served your purpose in that
Oh, absolutely.
AOC you got her attention. And and so, I mean, you literally went to Washington to lobby for, or to uh, activate
Yeah.
lawmakers for our community, and you did it. So
Yeah.
it's
It was
fantastic.
cool. It was really cool. And it did feel like because sometimes, you think, oh, I'm just the token drag queen that they, bring along for attention. But it was that situation with AOC. And then Cory Booker saw us as well. And he wanted to come up and take pictures. And so it just was really incredible to be able to provide those moments to the rest of the HRC people because, they're not going to get that type of attention. And so to be able to bring visibility to the cause and to human rights campaign is why I always, anytime they ask me to do something with the human rights campaign, I always say, tell me when you need me there. I'll be there.
Well,
Always.
that's amazing. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you've not just through your the advocacy, but just by being you. You really are. I'll get to that as in the final question, but I wanted to ask about you outside of your persona. What would be one thing that people would be shocked to learn about the real Elliott Puckett when the wig and lashes are off?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I've gotten to the point where I'm so boring now. Like, as you get older, you become more boring and you want to be home with the
Uh,
dogs. You don't want to go
I nodded
out. You
along to
don't
that. I'm like, yeah, true.
know, like you
Yeah.
just we become so boring. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even
When you
know.
do have a day off, what do you do most of the time? What
I
is?
just bed rot. 100% just bed rot. Because, when I do shows and when I perform, it's not just doing the number, it's also you have to be on like Disneyland. You have to, present yourself in a very
Mhm.
like, hello, like you have to be
Right.
way more than yourself. Because for me personally, if someone does recognize me and makes a deal about it, I want their experience meeting me to be really special because again, I don't think anyone knows who I am. So the fact that you knew who I was and you wanted to come say hi to me and you like what I do is so special. And so I will always take a picture. I will always say hi because that's, the little kid in me that, when I first was taught cursive in elementary school, would practice my autograph as a little baby because I just was so excited to have that opportunity to give someone that. And so that always is with me when someone recognizes me. So I always try to be on 100% when I'm out. So when I do have downtime, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to go out to eat. I don't want to do anything. But
I
I
don't blame
mean,
you.
I mean,
And you're
it's
right.
just
It's not just, I forgot. I mean, I kept emphasizing the physical part of it, the visual, but it's so true that, not only is it physically an ordeal, I'm sure, but having to like always be on too.
yes,
And it must require an immense amount of like mental energy and physical energy. I mean, it's a lot. It's a
it
lot.
is a lot. I mean, it reminds me of when I worked on cruise ships where
Yep.
anytime I left my cabin, you had to be on. You had to be ready to answer a question or point someone in the right direction. You had to be a staff
Mhm.
member, a crew member. And so whenever I'm in drag, I kind of take that same mindset and instill that because again, I don't ever want to disappoint someone. I always want someone to have the best experience possible, even if it has anything to do with me. I want it to be the most magical, special, memorable thing for them. And so I I personally take that very seriously of being on, even if I'm not feeling like it. I want to be on. So yeah, I love a good bed rot. I
That's your
love a
chance
good
to
bed rot.
recharge. I'm
Yes,
sure. You
we're
have to
all not
recharge.
so lucky. We're not most of us are not lucky enough to have days where you can just do nothing and recharge. So I do not take that time for granted. I
Yeah.
put the time in and the hours in, just rotting.
Well, you are definitely special, and I think you really, you have something that a lot of people on the show don't have, and you have a unique, not just on the show, but in general in this genre in this field. I think, because of the references you make, and just in your just your presence, your persona. I think you definitely have made a massive mark. But sort of as a final question. And this is a big one. I think of one specific to this podcast. Because I think I think a big part of it is learning lessons from people who have shown courage and shown determination and conviction. What advice would you give to a young queer kid, whether it be in Texas or anywhere else in the country, around the world, who's dreaming of doing drag and chasing the spotlight and just chasing sort of being an authentic version of themselves. What advice would you give about persevering?
I think the main thing is to know that nothing lasts forever, as in the bad situation you're in or the small town
Mhm,
you live in. You can always leave, but it's not
mhm,
something that happens overnight. It's something that takes time. And so I used
mhm,
that as my superpower to make me want to achieve more instead of kind of, being battled down by the negativity and the homophobia and the things that I went through as a kid. I always knew this is temporary. I'm not going to be in Texas forever. I'm not going to be in this town forever. I'm eventually going to go out and be able to pursue the things that I want to pursue. And I think that that was a superpower for me, was knowing this is all temporary. And
mhm,
so if you're in a negative situation, make a plan, figure out what you're going to do. Don't let your situation control what you want to do or where you can go. Everyone has the ability to get up and leave and walk away and pursue the things that they want to pursue. You just have to have a plan. You have to know what, I mean, I say that, but I moved to Vegas on a one-way Southwest flight with two
wow,
suitcases and just went, I'm leaving.
mhm.
I didn't know
Well,
what I
that's
was
what
going
it
to do.
takes
And you just,
sometimes. That's what it takes.
sometimes that works, but it's not always so. But you have to be able to have the conviction to do that. You have to be able to have the conviction to go, I'm getting on this one-way flight and
Mhm,
jump. But,
yep,
you have to be able to know where you're going to go with it. You can't just, I had been a dancer for like, God knows, a few decades, a couple of decades at that point when I moved to Vegas. So I knew like this is the path I'm going. So I had the tools and the skill set to back up relocating and figuring out what I wanted to do with myself. So you have to have the backbone, the framework that you need to be able to achieve the things you want to do and then just do it. Honestly,
right.
it sounds so cliche,
No,
but
it's true.
if it's something you want to do it. Just jump.
Well, like, not to yet again, we're compare you to my mom, but like my mom, but she was 17 and she left home and she was basically homeless. And,
Yeah.
and within a few years, she was, in one of the biggest bands in America. But, she went through some really hard times, but she just said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And sometimes
Yeah.
that's, yeah, and then that comes with risks, and it's not always easy, but sometimes, yeah, what do they say? High risk, high reward. Sometimes it just takes a
Yes.
leap of faith, you
I
know?
slept on couches when I moved to Vegas. I mean, again, it's not glamorous. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't the perfect situation. But if you're hungry enough for something and you
Well,
find the outlets and you find the right people and you surround yourself in those environments that are going to help, boost you, it can happen for anyone. You just have to, kind of be really smart about it and be in the right place at the right time. And just again, when it comes to time frames of things, not everything happens overnight. You have to be patient and know that it's going to happen when it happens. So don't get down on yourself if it doesn't happen this year or next year. It's
no,
things take time, take a long time sometimes.
they do. They do. But honestly, you are a perfect example of what someone can do when they have courage and determination. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we got to talk.
Yes, this was amazing. It's so nice to finally meet you. And yes, this has been lovely.
I wanted to ask. I mean, obviously, I know people watching this probably already know or know where to find you. But in case they don't, where can people go to keep up with what you're doing and follow you?
Just follow me on Instagram at the real Elliott Queen. Make sure you spell Elliott with two T's. It's the whole point of my name. Make sure you spell it correctly, and it's just at the real Elliott Queen on Instagram. That's pretty much where I exist, is just there. So yeah, just check out where I'm going next. I have lots of things
Yeah,
coming up that
everybody,
are exciting.
catch her in Vegas or on her
Yes,
next cruise. Stream her
yes.
latest performances. Elliot, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Duke. This has been fabulous.
It's been great. Bye. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.